That's right. Welcome in. Welcome back, folks. Hope you turned your clocks ahead an hour. Here we are, folks. Thanks for being here. It's just weird. The clocks are moved up an hour. I wake up. It's snowing like crazy outside. What's going on here? Here's where we're going to start. Thank you for being here. Why can't Notre Dame just have a normal offseason? It's every week it's something. Every week, it's something. Okay. Every single week. Nothing could just be easy or normal for Notre Dame. Here we are again. We have another situation. And it's one that has layers. It's one that has layers to it. And I'm already seeing debates on who's right and who's wrong and whose fault is it or whatever. So we're going to get into the Notre Dame recruiting situation, and then we're going to get into more spring priorities, some of the things that I'm really looking for Notre Dame to get accomplished this spring. So I thank everybody for being here. As always, if you haven't yet, please subscribe. We're on YouTube, and you know that. Give the video a thumbs up. That really helps me as well. Notifications on. That way you're alerted every time a new episode drops. You don't want to miss it, and I know that. Twitter, search bar, Always Irish, or at Always Irish Inc. Emails, alwaysirishandy@gmail.com. Audio only anywhere you want me. You can get me. Call in line. Unless you're all too tired from losing an hour of sleep. 312-988-15 if anybody would like to opine. All right. So let's do a roll call. Welcome the people in. And then we'll get into some of this. And I'm going to break down the different layers to this. And we'll kind of see where we get. My inclination is people that already have their minds made up on how they're going to go on this recruiting situation have already got their minds made up on how it's going to go on this recruiting situation. And those that are open-minded or want to hear other things, we're going to go over all the angles. All right. All right. Roll call. Let's welcome the people here first and foremost. Cousin Luke. Starting off with the positivity here from Cousin Luke. I can always rely on that. I see where ND's class dropped to 15th. Great job, Master Recruiter Freeman. That hurts. It just hurts me to read it. It just hurts to read. JD Clay, listening to you in the background while I'm working. I hope it's on the background and on earbuds or something so everybody doesn't have to hear it. That's my only hope. Mikey Poles, he's over here lifting 8 times my body weight just as a warm-up. Good to see you here, Mikey. Oh, let's see. Has a coach had a wilder and tougher start to their first ever head coaching position than Freeman? Year 1, thrown into the fire. Year 2, a totally brand new coaching staff. It's just a lot going on. It's just a lot. And I know sometimes I get wrapped up into this and I got to be careful. Sometimes it just seems like the Notre Dame-ness with all the random stuff that pops up or the issues that we run into or have to work through or find ourselves in or whatever. And the recruiting struggles. And it's like, it seems like it's just us, but I'm open that it just feels that way because this is the one that I'm all wrapped up in and I'm not paying attention to every little recruiting detail. If another team loses a guy and now they're all freaking out about it. Right. So I'm open to that. But at the same time, I just feel like Notre Dame is a magnet for extra. Whatever it is, a magnet for extra drama, extra scrutiny, extra media, extra whatever. It just feels that way to me. I don't know. Patrick, look at this string. Jeez, we got Patrick Cotter, Andrew Kennedy, my brother, and Angela Rudiger all in a row. It's good to have the crew here. I'm having flashbacks to college age when we all spent many a long night together. It's all blending in. Dave 86 off work today. Glad I could join Dave 86. Good for you. Glad you don't have to work today. Bob Hill, good morning. Jay Lehman, good morning. One of the nicest people I know. Dr. John, always good to see you here. He's got the sunshine there. Maybe it's nice and warm where you're at for once. Patrick says, what's a normal offseason? Well, I wouldn't know because the team I love never seems to be able to have one where everything just goes smoothly according to plan. Or let me throw this in. Maybe an offseason where everything just goes smoothly or no big items of negative press occur. Let me blow your mind. How about an offseason where we get a bunch of good news? How about that? Like, abnormal doesn't need to be bad. Give me an offseason with a whole bunch of extra good news. Notre Dame lands 8 new 4.5 5-star guy. Give me some new positive on the offseason. And wait, listen, I said it last week. And I'm going to say it again. I was half kidding, but I'm half dead serious. And you all know that when I say, why can't I just roll over, wake up in the morning or whatever, and open my phone and I have all these text messages and I know they're from Notre Dame people and they're all going, John, did you hear this great rumor that we're going to get the commitment of this guy or that this good thing happened? It never seems to be that way. I get those messages. I get a string of Notre Dame text messages. Somebody's dead. Somebody's arrested. Somebody's in trouble. Like, it's just never a good one. It's never a good one. Now, Heart Foundation, good to see you here. Michael Park says, fire Jack. I don't know exactly what for, but we're just in that mood today. We lost an hour of sleep. Fire Jack, damn it. You didn't even give a reason. Just fire Jack. I like that, though. It makes Michael feel better to just type in all caps, fire Jack. That's what we're here for. Let it out. Let it out. Adam Dowling, good morning. How are you? Cousin Luke, the first one with the negativity, but he's here. He's being a part of the group. Oh, man. Steven, it's good to see you. Good to see you, Steven. Our fearless leader, John. I'm afraid of where I'm leading you, but I try my best. Look down on the bayou, James Thompson. Notre Dame-ness. A lot of things fall into Notre Dame-ness. A lot of them do. Wise Freeman wasting time recruiting kids that the administration's not going to let in. I think he knows better. We'll get into it. We're not there yet. We're almost there. We'll get into it. Here we go. V1 Rotate V2 $20 holler. I really appreciate that, man. Pay for the phone lines. Watching some highlight over the weekend, there's some truth to the fact that there are QBs that nobody's ever heard of on teams that nobody's ever heard of, throwing the ball and playing better than QBs for Notre Dame. That was one of my big complaints. Like, when I looked at our offense not looking very good or not nearly good enough, one of my biggest complaints was exactly what V1 Rotate V2 said, where you sit back on a weekend, if it's the Friday night batch of games or Saturday in between, before, after, when our boys play, and I would see teams that I barely ever heard of, quarterbacks and receivers I've definitely, honestly never heard of, and they're whizzing the ball all over the field. They're going up and down, quick strike offense, hitting a guy in stride over the middle, like throwing the ball deep, doing a stretch in the field, like, and that's what makes you sit there and go, I know Notre Dame has 100% more talent than what this team has that isn't considered a blue blood or a top recruiting operation or anything. Why is their offense whizzing up and down the field with efficiency and excitement and modernity, and we're over here can't complete like a 5-yard out route to the sideline, or everything looks like a struggle? Like, that was a large-scale complaint. We got to be past that, right? The idea now with what you have at quarterback is that we're past that point, that we're not going to be in that again. Hopefully, with Hartman, Buckner, Minchie, Carr, whatever's going to happen, you would hope we're past that. That was, you're right, V1 Rotate. It's been a long time complaint of mine that these operations I know do not have nearly Notre Dame's talent ran way more efficient looking offenses. Now, I know that's a simplistic analysis. It's just the first thing you look at when you turn on your TV. And I'm like, I don't know who any of these guys are, but it looks more effective than what we're running. I don't know. I'm just glad to have you back, V1, V2. I know work and everything else. Good to have you here. Jazz, what do we got? With most of BK staff gone, does this mean the program or culture is going down? Wait a second. With most of BK staff gone, does this mean the program or culture is going down? I like to think that the culture that Freeman's trying to cultivate is a more healthy one, big picture, than the one Kelly had towards the end when everything felt stale. And obviously, that's not just me saying it. Kelly felt it too, or he'd still be here. So, I mean, I don't mean the program or the culture's going down. I give Kelly for getting the program to a certain level of cultural stability that was lacking when he first came in. Like, he's done that, and I give him credit for that, finding that baseline of culture stability. I mean, I don't see anything to indicate it's going down. There's just no doubt Freeman's had some unexpected challenges come his way. But I'm not going to say the culture's going down. Like, to me, the culture going down means we just start having a bunch of guys that are getting arrested or doing like, that's not on my radar. It's not on my radar. I'm happy to have you here, Jazz out. The Art Foundation, it always goes according to plan, John. 10-2, 11-1, and no championship still. That's the freaking plan. If we went 11-1 this year with this schedule, I don't think a lot of people would be complaining. Is Georgia having a regular offseason right after they win the ship? Okay, you just covered it, Pat. They won a championship. There's my answer. I'm a lot more flexible to an uncertain offseason after you win a championship. There you go. Like, I mean, I don't know. So, yeah, we don't have those problems, but we also don't have a championship, too. And again, I already said, Pat, I'm not sitting here dissecting everybody else's situation. I just noticed Notre Dame more than anything else. I just wanted to be normal for once. Or not normal. How about just not negative? But I still maintain I'm a lot open to a lot of irregularity in the offseason right after you won 2 championships in a row. Like, you could have a lot going on in that offseason, and I'm going to be pretty relaxed as opposed to where we're at. John's feisty this morning. Yeah, when am I not? Here we go. Brian Denbo, good to see you. Freeman isn't able to flex his best ability. What chances does he have? Yeah, that's a part of, there's going to have to be a recalibration, right? With what he's learned in year one of a recruiting cycle. With the NIL getting burned in the 11th hour, how can you prevent that? Like, things like this that we're going through with Hillman. That's, we're just going to have to adjust. Freeman's going to have to adjust. He is. And that's a part of the process too. And I don't know how you speed that up other than learning and kind of adjusting as you go. Are we this only school that had a kid transfer? No, I'm not saying we're the only ones. This is a Notre Dame show. I'm only worried about all the problems that affect us. I'll pull you up in a minute, Pat. Oh, man. Here we go. Some big picture. If this fan base doesn't know by now what the problem is after 35 years, just stupid and naive. We truly are the home of misguided passion, quote Jack. That's pretty funny. What's the quality of competition, John? What are you, a book checker? First thing Monday morning, Pat, you're checking my work like a third grade teacher. It's just the general concept that I see these offense run around and look smoother than ours does. Give me a freaking break. I'll bring you up in a second. We'll yell about it in person at 9:15 a.m. if you want. All right, now we're down to the part. All right. Now let's get into this, Hillman. $5 hour, Paul Conley. Thank you. John the Great. Let's support John with super chats. John deserves it. John appreciates Paul saying that. Anybody who wants to donate, it goes right to the phone line. Appreciate it very much. All right, let's get into the Hillman thing fast. And then me and Pat are going to yell about stuff, which nobody wants on a Monday morning, but apparently he does. I'm fine with it. All right, so then it just came out last night. It looks like Brandon Hillman, the safety prospect, will not be enrolling in Notre Dame. Put out a respectful thing. I saw it on Twitter, probably Instagram too, wanting to be relieved of his letter of intent, whatever. Now, I do not know this for sure. And the last thing I want to do is besmirch a guy's grades when I don't know 100% that that's the reason. Every single thing that I have read about this issue suggests that it was a grades type issue and that they didn't get a certain grade to a certain level that it had to be able to enroll in Notre Dame and do all that. That is what I've read. If I don't want to go hard on this because I don't know that for sure, but everything I've read about this has something about a grade being an issue. So here's a couple things with this and how you're going to think about it. So number one is another big hit to that recruiting class that was supposed to be really great. It's another big hit. Hillman ended up being one of the top guys, some people's top favorite guy out of this recruiting class when it was all said and done. So safety recruiting and safety depth is an issue. And it was even with Hillman in the fold. So now you have that issue being a little bit more intensified. And so the real issue here is who do you put the blame on for this situation? Is it the school? Is it Freeman? Is it the kid's fault for not keeping the grade up or getting the grade up? Is it a blend of all of it? I don't know. But that I'm already getting message after message. I log in this morning to make sure I don't miss any news before we go live. And I got a whole bunch of messages telling me your boy Freeman's a fraud. He's not recruiting the way you said, all that kind of stuff. So this is a give and a take. And it's kind of a big risk reward calculus. One of the main changes between how Kelly and Freeman recruit is Kelly liked to wait till he knew 100% a guy could get into Notre Dame to put on the full court press. That is how Kelly figured it was the best use of his time to not put a bunch of time into guys that may not be able to ultimately end up and get through Notre Dame. Okay. Now, what that meant is Kelly knew when he got a guy committed, they could get into Notre Dame and he didn't have that issue. On the downside, this also meant by the time Notre Dame got clearance to fully embrace and go after a guy, a lot of times it was too late to build a high quality enough relationship for Notre Dame to catch up and be able to have the same level of relationship and rapport with some of these guys as other schools that have been after him a year or two. That is the give and take. One of the things when Freeman first got in here was he was going hard after everybody they wanted if the grades were close, going after them, building the relationship, getting a commitment if you can. And then if there's a grades issue, it's very clear what the guy needs to do to be in good standing at Notre Dame. And it's like an agreement of, if you're not able to do this, you're not coming here. But we believe in you. We're going to give you a chance to keep those grades or get those grades right. So it seems like that's what happened. And it seems like Freeman and Notre Dame got burned on this one. And I don't want to be like, it's this kid's fault. Like, school is hard. Certain classes are hard. Like, I don't know all the details. I'm not going to say the kid didn't try in school. I don't know all those details. I don't. But this, I think, is the high risk, high reward part of how Freeman does things differently than Kelly, is doing some of this with kind of the cart out of the wagon, and then you hope it works out, and it didn't work out here. So now you got that recruiting class dropping down to like the 15 range, and people are questioning if Freeman knows what he's doing. And I still think big picture, you're going to win more than you're going to lose on the ones where Freeman's going to take a shot. That's what I kind of think. All right. You're going to win more than you're going to lose if you maintain this work ethic and cover all your bases long term. I think you're going to win more than you're going to lose with those guys trying to get in Notre Dame. It's just this one hurts. It's at a position we need, and it's a guy that we thought was going to be, one of the higher rated guys out of the class. So that hurts. It just does. So, Cousin Luke, so when do we see the reward part of the deal? You might not. Here's my answer to that, Cousin Luke. Think about it. You might actually never see the reward part of that deal because you might not know what's going on behind the scenes, right? If there could be a handful of these kind of agreements going on in this recruiting class, 4 of them are working out great and the guys' grades are fine, and this one isn't. So in that case, you lost 1 out of 5. The reward, you may not even know. I don't know how often this dynamic's playing out, but this is a fundamental difference between how Kelly and Freeman recruited, and you're going to win some and lose some when you're doing it this way. When you're doing it this way, that's just how it's going to be. And I can't be the guy that came in here and said, one of the main reasons I wanted Freeman to get this job was because he recruits so much differently than Kelly, pushing so much more paperwork through that office, taking risks on guys, trying to build these extra relationships. I can't give him credit for that for the whole last year and then kill him today because one of them didn't work out. I think that would be hypocritical of me. At the same time, this sucks. I'm not going to say it doesn't suck. I can't get in here and go, oh, this is great. It blows. It's frustrating. But I'm just seeing people messaging me saying Freeman's in over his head. He has no idea what's going on. I just don't believe that. That's an exaggeration. And usually I'm the exaggerator. But I don't think I am here. So I don't know. What else? We got a couple chats, then we'll go to the phone. Chaz, good to see you. When Lou Alt said it was the administration keeping him from getting Randy Moss, and then you go to see what Moss has done in the NFL career, the administration, it's the administration. It's got to be now or never. I don't know. I just think, and how much are you expecting the administration to change after 100 years? Like I guess maybe that's a question we got to ask. Dr. John being very diplomatic without knowing the exact facts in the case. It's disingenuous to be critical to any individual involved. That's why I wasn't there. That's why I'm kind of like, I can't go full bore. I'm saying if it is the academic grade issue, it makes perfect sense how we ended up in this position, because we know for a fact Freeman has admitted his recruiting approach is different than Kelly in that regard. And if Notre Dame has any chance to recruit really in that top 5 or whatever, they got to operate that way and take some chances and go after these guys. So then if you get burned, it's going to be a bad look, and it looks like it's a bad look. So I don't know. Frustrating. And then the big picture at safety and the depth and all that, like that's a practical issue, right? Eric Ward, this class went from 1 to 15. Not ideal. Not ideal at all. Ooh, appreciate that. $6.99, $7 holler for the phone lines. Go Irish. Luke Collins, I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. Oh, boy. All right. Let's open it up. 773, you're on with me Monday morning.
John.
What's up?
Oh, nothing. So what is a normal off season then? What does it look like? What do you expect? What would you want to see?
I would want to see no major negative drama. Is that too much to ask?
And in your 38 years of following Notre Dame football, have you ever seen that in an off season?
I could still ask for it. I'm not saying I'm going to get it. I just, I can still ask for it, Pat.
There's no such thing. Coaches change every year. Players
Wait a
transfer
second.
every
Whoa,
year.
whoa, whoa.
This
Time out.
situation
Time out.
happens.
Time out.
I'd rather have a kid not field. I'd rather have
Time
Roger
out.
Freeman offer a kid.
Time out.
Go ahead. It's your show.
It has nothing to do with that. Kent Jackson's back, the resident Ohio State fan. Kent, Kent, we thought you were dead. We thought you were dead. I was sending search parties to Ohio to look for you. People have been asking where you're at, Kent. Dr. John was asking if you were going to be able to wheelchair him around the game in late September, and I didn't know if you were alive. Kent, I'm glad to see you here, my friend. Pat, I'm sorry, but people have been asking about Kent. I'm glad to have you back, buddy.
I'm not saying anything.
We've been worrying about you. Glad to have you back. Pat, okay, Pat, back to this. I just don't want negative. Why is it always got to be negative, man? Why can't I roll over and get a bunch of text and it's, hey, John, Notre Dame's about to land this great guy. Did you hear about this? I just don't want all the headlines to be negative. That's all.
Why don't you, I mean, but this happened. Notre Dame just got a great offensive quarterback coach. Notre Dame got a great offensive line coach. Are those negatives?
Well, I mean, you're saying they're great. It's kind of wait and see how it all goes, right? Are you a year ahead? Are you a year ahead in this chat where you knew?
I think the quarterback coach, as a quarterback coach specifically, is a better quarterback coach than Tommy Rees. I think that's an improvement. I think the only changes that you made across the offensive side of the coaching staff is the offensive coordinator, where I think it's a push. It's not. We don't know if he's better or worse. I think he's a push. So no, and a kid. I don't know why this kid is not coming to Notre Dame. I'm not going to speculate. Dr. John has taken the perfect answer. You position yourself that way too. I'm not mad about it. I'm not going to be, oh my God, this kid. It happens. Oh, hey, Kent, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations, Kent. But Pat, you got to understand some of the direction I have to steer this program depends.
No, I know what you got.
But it depends on, you got to understand, Pat, I'm a lightning rod for all this. And we discussed my personal leverage and investment in Marcus Freeman and how tied into that I am. Now, you got to understand, when I wake up in the morning, I have 20 direct messages on Twitter calling me a moron because my guy Freeman can't even recruit guys that could get into the school. What an idiot. And then that gets me all worked up before I even come on here because I take all of that immediate reaction is somebody's messing up here. Like, and it's just, again, your guy Freeman, he's a great recruiter. Now we're 15th. I'd rather have a Kelly class.
Oh my God, Kelly's class.
So you can see why I'm all worked up because all those people are telling me Kelly's better at this than Freeman, and I know he's not. But we end up in this position. But I know that he didn't do a better job.
We can't say we know that Kelly is or isn't better at this than Freeman because Freeman's only been doing this for 1 year. Kelly's been doing it for 20 years.
But just look at the work ethic. Look at the work ethic, Pat. There's no way you practically looking at just the work the guy puts in to try and recruit his way ahead of what Kelly did. Whether this guy didn't get the grades and the NIL stuff showed up for the other guys in the last night or not.
I agree. The work ethic is completely different. This man tries to do things that Kelly never tried to do. But I'm so sick and tired of talking about Kelly. Oh, the guy's gone. He can go F himself.
But that's always going to be the bar here with between Freeman and him. They're always going to be linked. And Reese is always going to be linked. They're all connected forever.
Here's my favorite part about this and these people that are all, when Freeman is doing well, when Freeman is getting these top recruits and Freeman is showing the difference between what him and Kelly could have been, it's going to be the Kelly people are going to be like, man, why do you keep harping on Kelly? Let's just move on and talk about Freeman. Then as soon as there's a little chink in the armor, as soon as something goes wrong, that happens to every coach at every college football program in the country. I mean, Kirby Smart is the top dog. He had a player arrested for drag racing that killed another player and a staffer. His star quarterback that won him 2 back-to-back national championships got arrested for trying to kick in a hotel room door. And Kirby Smart is the top dog in the country, and he still goes through this kind of crap. So this, Freeman's falling apart, his offensive coordinator left. All of you wanted Tommy Reese to be fired, and now you're all bitching that he's gone, and he had to go get someone else. All of you people, it's just the bitching and the bitching. It doesn't matter what it is. Somebody's going to find something to bitch about. This offseason, I bet you, to Marcus Freeman and Jack Swabrick has been about as blah as any offseason can be, because this stuff happens every year. And if Marcus Freeman as head football coach can't handle this stuff, then maybe he isn't the right guy for the job. I guarantee you the chaos around the program is caused by the people, the fans who, and now like I said, I'm not defending Jack's email, but he probably has a point about that misguided passion, because people overreact to everything. Again, the problem with the Ludwig situation wasn't that Ludwig didn't come to Notre Dame. It's just that shit got out in public. It got out in public about everything that happened. That was the problem with the Ludwig situation.
Yeah.
It's just, everything is now just overblown to be this big old, everything's a conspiracy. The administration's out to get Notre Dame, or is out to get Marcus Freeman. They don't want him to succeed. They don't want to have a good football team. Clearly they do, because as you just said, Kelly, for 12 freaking years, 13 freaking years, however long he was here, wouldn't even bother recruiting these guys until they knew they'd get into the administration.
Yeah.
Or knew they could get into school. And Freeman's going after him. It's not like the administration sitting back and saying, whoa, hey, we haven't vetted this kid yet. You can't let them in.
Yeah.
So clearly they're not out there saying, hey, Marcus, you can't go and get these kids until you can't go and recruit these kids so they know you get into university. Go after them. So the administration is letting them get there. And again, I don't know the situation with this kid. I don't want to sit there and say he's a dumbass and he can't get into Notre Dame.
Me neither.
But there is evidence to the fact that Notre Dame is going to let these kids in. And people can say, I saw stuff about like Lou Holtz and Randy Moss and stuff like that in the chat. If you go back to Notre Dame in the late 80s, Lou Holtz, when he came in, he had a different athletic director than when he was hired than when he left. He had a different university president when he was hired than when he left. And if you come into that stuff and you look at it, Lou was allowed to get Tony Rice. Lou was allowed to get Chris Zorge. And he was allowed to get these superb talents that wouldn't got into Notre Dame when Jerry Faust was there. And he said, no. If I'm going to be hired at the university, this is what I want. And the university turned around and said, okay, we'll let you do that. But the kid's got a gray shirt. They can't play for a year, and they have to show that they can make the grades in their first year, and they can turn around and play. Okay, that started to change when Monk Malloy became the president of the university and Wadsworth became the athletic director. But it changed and they blamed that for stuff like the Kim Dunbar situation. Okay, so then they did put the clamps down on Lou. They did put the clamps down on Bob Davie. But then they started to loosen it up again because the administration changed again. And Jenkins came in, and Kevin White, and then Swabrick. They became more accommodating to that, and they still are accommodating to that. And the Brian Kelly excuse for 12 years was, I don't even want to bother. I don't want to waste my time to go after this kid. I don't want to waste my time to have University of Toronto say they can't get him in, or it might be a problem. And that was just a wrong approach. You are never going to get a Keon Healy or any of those top tier guys if that's your attitude as a recruiter. He was lazy. He didn't want to do the work. But here we go again. 2 years after this freaking guy is gone, we're going into our second season without him, and we're still talking about the Jagoffs because people won't let him die.
Just a relaxing Monday morning.
Seriously.
You know what? I got to push back on this.
Just listen and laugh at it.
I got to push back on this. I got a bunch of these messages, probably a half dozen, Pat, late last night into this morning. And those messages were, John, it feels to me like Freeman's not getting what the administration will allow or let him do when you combine the Ludwig, whatever happened with that, miscommunication or misunderstanding. And then now we got these guys where Freeman's on one track with them and the administration isn't on board. What is going on? I don't see it that way at all. If this really was a grades issue, I guarantee you every group involved knew exactly where the dynamics stood, what needed to be done for things to happen.
Agree.
And the administration had their position. Freeman knew where it was. talks to the kid and the family in the high school and is like, we love you as a player, love you as a guy. We got to get this grade in this class or whatever to this point. Everybody knew where it was. And for whatever reason, it didn't work. And I can't blame, like, short term, I can't blame the administration for that. I can't blame Freeman for that.
No.
Big picture, you could argue, I want the reins loosened on football for, 5 guys on each side of the ball. Like, you could do that big picture. But in this dynamic, Freeman knew exactly where this stood. The kid knew where it stood, and the administration has their position.
Yeah.
I am totally confident this was not Freeman going rogue, trying to pull a guy under the administration. Like, that's not going to work. It ain't going to happen. That's not what happened here.
Like, so like, I don't know if there's this like, if people don't understand the history of Notre Dame or it's a revisionist history. Notre Dame has always had high standards. They've always had high standards. It doesn't matter if Rockney was the coach, Leahy was the coach, Parseghian was the coach. They always had high standards. Hell, the reason they hired Parseghian was because Northwestern had high standards, and he was the first true out of the not a Notre Dame guy they hired, and it was because of Northwestern's high standards in academics as well. Notre Dame has always had high standards. It's never been about the standards. It's been about the quality of the coach to get the quality of the player. And Notre Dame hasn't had a quality coach in 30 years. They just haven't. They had a guy who was a seat warmer who could win 9 or 10 games this season, but he was never going to bring a player in that can do better. You finally got a guy who's dynamic. He's dynamic when it comes to recruiting. I don't care what his recruiting ranking says. The class he put together in his first year at Notre Dame is better than any class he's ever put together, or that Brian Kelly's ever put together at Notre Dame. It is deeper in all positions. It is. It's just totally deeper in all positions. He just has to deal with a monster that no coach has had, that no Notre Dame coach has had to deal with before, and it's this NIL deal stuff. And if this stuff wasn't there, or if Notre Dame had a better plan going into it, or if it was there for a few years and Freeman saw how it would work and how it could impact his recruiting cycle in his first year, maybe that turns out a little bit different. But it's just there's a completely different system in place now, and everybody's learning it. This guy is a dynamic recruiter. So the part that concerns me with Marcus Freeman isn't the recruiting. I don't care what people say, 15th ranked class, that means shit to me. What matters to me is the coaching on the field. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing the coaching on the field. I haven't seen improvements from this team. The only group that I truly saw improvement on during last season was the offensive line. The defense was hit or miss all season long. The offense, clearly, the quarterback play was subpar. The wide receivers would show up and they would disappear. You had an offensive line that got better. It started out garbage, got better as the season went on, and then you had the all-world tight end. That was it. That was your football team last year. I'm sorry. And so the coaching wasn't what I wanted to see. I was concerned about his coaching when he was defensive coordinator in Kelly's last season. I'm worried about the coaching. I am not worried about the recruiting. This guy's going to get it together.
Yeah, and there's something to be said.
He's going to get the recruiting together.
When all this kind of in the year when Buckner went down and we were playing bad and everything, we were buying the 8 ball and everybody was frustrated. And I had some talks with some older Notre Dame guys that went there and have all their championship, memories and all that stuff. And a couple of them said to me, John, here's one thing you got to keep in mind. Yeah, Kelly had things pretty stable in a lot of ways, but everybody agrees it wasn't where anybody wanted it, including Kelly, and that's part of why he left. And I was told maybe it's got to get harder before you see those rewards. Like, it isn't just a smooth continuation from what Kelly built and it gets better and better. Maybe you got to tear down some of that and have some rough patches to get this built in a little different of a way. Freeman's a smart guy, Pat. He's going to recalibrate some of this recruiting thing to try and prevent some of this. Like with the NIL in the 11th hour, like he is going to come up with some way to try and be able to adapt. But I can't blame the guy for diving all in his first cycle, trying his best. You got to do it that way. Dive all in, do it the way you want it by your natural inclination. Dive in. See where that gets you, and that's your baseline from which to adjust. Am I crazy for that, or is that one of the more reasonable takes I have?
No, that is actually one of the more reasonable takes. And
That's what I thought too. Thank you.
Yeah, but also like this. Go back to the Lovett situation real quick. And because all of a sudden, the administration was against Freeman in the Lovett situation. They were going to get him as offensive coordinator. And one of your points was that Marcus, as a person, is just because he is a person, just like we're people, he's going to harbor some resentment, right? That was a take you had on that, just because naturally you do, right?
Yeah, well, depending on what happened. Okay. Yeah, depending on what happened. I'm going to admit that I don't know for sure what that exact dynamic was. Right. It just all makes me uncomfortable.
One question. Do you think him and Swabrick talk?
They better.
Yeah, I would bet, especially during the offseason right now when he's hiring coaches and he's getting his budgets together for next season and the recruiting plans. And all, I bet you he talks to him multiple times a week, or at least Ron Powell, who's Freeman's direct boss.
Look at this, Pat. 6 and John, you were nuts. 6-6. And then the other guy said you were insane for talking about the Freeman stuff. Like, I don't know if these people, maybe they just don't like us or Notre Dame and they're faking it, but you just can't make some of these people happy. 6-6. Notre Dame goes 6-6. Imagine this show after that.
John, well, first off, you're unfortunately rather easy to troll because you get so worked up so well.
I can't help it.
And so I can imagine some people come in here just to see if they can get you rolling a little bit.
Sometimes I'll take a deep breath or two when I read something to let the initial wear down. Like I want to let the initial when I see it kind of just like zen it down a little. I'll take a deep breath or two and I just won't react right away because I know some people do it and it's usually obvious. But I admit it's probably fun. It's probably entertaining to do to me just to get me all wound up.
It is fun to watch. Like the time you threw the pencil at me, you threw the pencil at your camera.
I wanted to go through your screen digitally and hit you on the other end.
Lauren was watching when you did that. She bursted out laughing.
I'm sorry. But on this one, Pat, Freeman was doing what I was asking him to do. Be super aggressive in recruiting. You might have to take a couple risks and chances. And it just
doesn't bother me.
And it burned him. It burned him. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I wouldn't say why did it burn him? He's not burned. Again, we don't know what happened. There could be a number of scenarios. We don't know. So I'm not going to, the rumor mill is the rumor mill. I'm sick and tired of the rumor mill because I think after all of the rumors we heard after the Ludwig situation, I am less confident in any position. Anything I hear about it just makes me want to turn it off because so many people were right. So many people were wrong that you just can't. It makes it just so hard to trust anybody. And I know what you told me that on the side, and that's probably the likely scenario. But I still don't even. I don't even like it. It just doesn't. It just doesn't make sense to me. So
and where I ended with that, man. Freeman, after all my real frustration, I ended with, I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I know something didn't go right. Tighten up the process. And I think that's how I've come out of that on the other end. Tighten up I don't know exactly the details. And I admit that something went wrong that exposed Freeman and exposed all of this in a bad way. You just need to tighten that up moving forward. That's my last statement on it.
Yeah, no, I agree. You're right. They just had to tighten up the process. And you didn't hear anything about the special teams coach until the special teams coach. Brian Mason left, and he had a new special teams coach on board. And then you heard some candidate about the offensive line coach, but the quarterback coach was hired overnight. They immediately tightened up that process because that's what they needed to do. And I'm so like these just vampires of so-called Notre Dame fans who. The administration is against the head coach. The Marcus Freeman is worse than Brian Kelly. These people have no idea what they're talking about. Okay, the administration can't be against the head coach. They can't be against the football program because it's what their money is. It's the money maker. Notre Dame doesn't have the billions. They literally have billions of dollars in their endowment. It's not there if it's not for this football team, and these people know that. They know what signs. They know how they know where the money comes that allows them to sign the checks that they can sign. So it's just asinine. Are they tight? Are they stuck up? Yeah, maybe. You're not going to get away from that because of the people, the position they are in, and just what they had to do to get there. Yeah, that's going to happen. But still, it's just so dumb. And it's the perfect example of if it is true. The unfortunate situation is that this kid didn't have the grades to get into the university, but the university allowed the head coach to offer him a scholarship and allowed the head coach to have him commit to the university. And they put a plan in place that this kid likely had to meet if that is the scenario, and he doesn't meet it. Why are you mad at the university? Why are you mad at the administration?
So I guess you could argue, you could argue in that scenario that the administration was actually more flexible than you might expect them to be in that regard. But the argument would be, but the argument would be backing up a little bit and saying, if Freeman goes to you needs a guy who's short one grade, throw him a bone, not make it the end of the world, make or break. Like that's the next scale of that argument is give the guy a little break, give him some wiggle room. And by the way, we don't know. He might already be working off that wiggle room and we just don't know about it. We don't know that.
That's exactly what my point is.
We don't know that.
That's fair. That would have been exactly fair if that is the case. But we don't know. They're not going to come out and say, first of all, we can go and look at all these GPAs. So these kids, a lot of the vast majority of these kids that committed to Notre Dame shared their GPAs with reporters who would interview them. And a lot of them were 3+ GPAs. So we do know a lot of these kids had the grades already. So it wasn't a concern, but we don't know all of them. And so we could go back and say, who knows? Maybe this kid was getting a D in his history class, and he had to raise that up to a B- to get into Notre Dame. And we'll never know. They're not going to tell us. They're not going to tell us that this kid had a D and he had to raise it to a B, or a C and he had to raise it to a D.
Nor should they.
Tell you that.
Nor should they.
Nor should they. Exactly. And the only reason the Tony Rice and the Chris Zorn stuff, the only reason people know about that is because of Tony Rice and Chris Zorn. They shared their story.
Yeah.
They shared their stories. The university never said, we think Chris Zorn is a dumbass, but we let it, who's got dyslexia, can't read, so we let him into school anyways. That wasn't the case. They weren't going to share that stuff. It was these guys came out and said, the best thing that ever happened in my life is that Notre Dame gave me a chance. I shouldn't have got in there, but they gave me a chance. Not Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz offered them the scholarship, but the university bent their rules and let these kids in there. So this whole idea that the administration is against this winning, and at the end of the day, it's always going to come down to, well, so what? Why can't we get the players that are a C average kid like Alabama? I want to win like Alabama. I don't want to be Alabama. I don't want that stuff. I want kids that go to Notre Dame that want a degree. They care about their education, that it means more to them, that it's God, country, Notre Dame, that it's not me, my pocket in the NFL. That's what I want at Notre Dame. All right. I want kids that want to be there. I don't want kids that are looking at it as a transfer point to the NFL. They can use it as a transfer point to the NFL, but I want them to go there for more. I want them to go there like so many other guys have in the past, like Jerome Bettis, who goes there for 3 years, wins, runs people over because he's a freaking bust, and then he decides, you know what? I didn't finish my degree at Notre Dame. I'm going to go back and get it. Same thing a guy like Jimmy Clausen did. His career didn't work out, but he was able to go back and get his degree because those are the guys that deserve to be at Notre Dame, not these schmucks who can't tie their goddamn shoes. You ever see the guys who, they get tackled during the game, their shoe gets ripped off, and they have to go to the sideline and have a trainer tie their shoe for them? I don't want that shit at Notre Dame. That's hyperbole.
Pat, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry we got you going. I'm sorry we got you going, bro.
Freaking Monday.
Look at this. You're telling me, oh, John, you always get wound up. Look at you. You're on the show 15 minutes and your blood pressure's at my level. There's something about it. Look at what I got on the screen, Pat. The administration is lost. They have no clue what they're doing, and Freeman is working circles around them, and they can't keep up. What is your response to that?
To say that the administration has no clue what they're doing is it's an asinine statement. Sorry, Michael. Now, the last part of it.
Wouldn't it be more effective? Wouldn't Notre Dame people be more mad if the administration did know exactly what they're doing and it's conspiring against my guy Freeman? That would be a worse situation than they're clueless.
Well, if,
one is in malice intent, and the other is clueless.
Again, all right, so we got to stop using the administration as a buzzword and actually identify who we think the culprits are. I know it's going to be Jack's.
But that's hard. That's hard because Jack's got all those people above him that when the football program wants something, then Jack has to go into that room and then convince those bean counters as a liaison from like Marcus. Then it goes to Jack. They talk about what Marcus needs. Then he goes in that room and has to pitch these people to cough up the dough to get it done.
Yeah.
That's what I understand the dynamic is. And in that dynamic, I don't know whether what Jack's saying. He could be all in favor of what Freeman wants. But if those dorks don't give him the money, then it's a no.
I don't know how often Jack's been told no. I can't comment on that. But I think Jack's probably the most influential person at the university outside of the provost and the president. Okay.
Yeah.
He could probably open any door and get what he wants from anybody, especially the board of trustees. But it doesn't mean I'm saying the board of trustees can't be. You know, I've been critical on them of many reasons, not just with the football program. But my thing is, I do think there's a point to the last part of Michael's statement is they're not used. They're not used to his work ethic, that he's overwhelming them. Now, at this point, and this goes back to your model of what you said, what your people on the inside were saying about his new model recruiting and the kids he was submitting for evaluation to the university, they couldn't keep up. At this point, they should have caught up to that. But it is possible in the beginning, the first year, and then once he brings in all these guys that are all about recruiting.
No, that initial
there was a catch up.
That initial that story I referenced, it wasn't even him as being the head coach. It was being hired as Kelly's DC.
Know, it's him as a defense coordinator.
And I could tell you back then they were genuinely overwhelmed with the amount of paperwork and research that he was asking them to do on all these guys, and they're going back to their high schools. But we're way past that. And we certainly are. Yeah. But it's here's the thing. Even just last weekend, some of the people that love this show that are in the Notre Dame circle were over there meeting with some board members, meeting with people in the actual administration. I have been assured when my people return from that meeting that administration loves Freeman. He's way easier to work with than Kelly. They were open. They were open about saying working with Freeman is way different than working with Kelly. He's just easier to work with in every way you could name, and everybody wants to support Marcus.
Yeah.
And they all said the guy's work ethic is unchallenged. He is on the move so much. You never know where he's at.
Yeah.
Like, I have been assured behind the scenes, they love Marcus. They want to work with him. They want to support him and all that. And then right when I say that, Pat, somebody puts in the chat, well, yeah, that's because Marcus is a yes man. So you're never going to win on this. You're never going to win on this. Now he's a yes man.
And you know, here's another example. Like we said, Marcus had to fall on the sword, right?
They like Freeman because they like Freeman because they can push him around. He's going to do what they say. So you're never, the only way to win this argument is win the championship. That's the only way, Pat, to shut all this down, win playoff games.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that.
Because this is never going to go away now until that happens, or the guy fails and leaves, and everybody goes, John, you're an idiot. You wanted this guy, and then he was a failure. Shut your show down. Do I look like I'm laughing?
No, I know. I'm laughing. It's funny. But you're not going to win. These people, they're insane. They're crazy. They're not going to do what they need to do. They're not going to admit to anything. They're just here to say what they want. I think the last thing Marcus Freeman is a yes man. I just think Marcus Freeman has a personality that makes it easier to work with. Kelly, if he wasn't given what he wanted, he ran to his sycophants in the press and ask them to to put a story out there that made the university look bad instead of actually having a conversation with somebody. Freeman's the opposite way. He's the exact opposite of a yes man. He's a person who is driven, he's a person who's not going to be deterred. And if he doesn't get something he wants, that's okay. He's going to keep driving for it in a different direction. He's not going to be shut down. He's not going to make excuses. He could have stood on that stage and said, we had to settle for Parker, which would have been awful if he did anyways, regardless. But he wasn't going to do that because it's not good for his coach. It's not good for his program. It's not good for the university. It's not good for his recruiting. That's not yes man. That's not a yes man. That's a guy who recognizes the situations, has probably had very long conversations with the athletic director about the whole situation, and they came to a conclusion of what's the best way to move forward. And I don't think Freeman in any way whatsoever feels like he didn't get his guy. I think he's very comfortable with Parker because he wouldn't have hired Parker. He would have gone and looked for someone else. I think he made a decision that if he can get Ludwig, he's going to take Ludwig. If he can't get Ludwig for whatever reason, he's going to go with Parker. And that was it. And he didn't get Ludwig, he went with Parker. That's the end of the story.
Do you agree with me? Listen, I think Kelly was so hard to read. Like, you never knew his real personality. You never knew how much of the truth you were getting. I never even really knew if I could trust the way Kelly saw things, because my vision how things should have been operating and look was so vastly different than what we practically saw Kelly do. So I had a very hard time getting on the same wavelength as him as far as how he sees things. With Freeman, I feel that he's so modern and has a crystal clear idea of what he's working with. I believe he's either going to adjust and figure out what he needs to do to make it work at Notre Dame, or I am so confident that he's supremely tied to reality. He could leave early and go somewhere else if he really does know there's too much stacked against me and I'm not going to be able to develop here. I think he is so supremely tied to reality, he's going to know. I think that's going to dictate the answer to that. And it's either going to take off here.
I don't disagree with that.
You know, he's either going to take off here when he refines what he could do, or he's going to know they're not at my level of what I need to get done here. And he's going to know that. But for now, Pat, that people are questioning things and they're going, hey, this is a Brian Kelly class. Just look at the number. You know, if they're 15th now, what was a good Brian Kelly class? 7 or 8? That's worse than Kelly. Like, that's how this goes.
Brian Kelly's best class was the class that he got Eddie Vanderdost in. And it was because of Eddie Vanderdost. And Eddie Vanderdost didn't even go to Notre Dame. He left Notre Dame before he even walked on campus. He ended up at UCLA. Okay? That was Brian Kelly's best class. So I don't want to hear this. This is a good break. Brian Kelly was not a good recruiter. And it wasn't, it's not, and you and I talked about this through text the other day. LSU fans don't understand what's happening right now because they're like, look at Kelly's recruiting. He's doing great. He was 7 and he's getting all these transfers and everything's great. And he's not playing golf right now. And eventually he's going to want to go play golf again because Brian Kelly likes to play golf. Okay. Brian Kelly's a good football coach. I'm not going to argue that. He gets the teams he's supposed to beat, but he's a golfer.
The problem with that is, too, the problem is LSU, you could golf year round. At least, like in Indiana, you had to go somewhere else to golf. Now you could go right down there.
You don't have to go to Europe anymore. You don't have to do your summer, your 2 weeks in Europe to go find some golf courses to play at.
Yeah.
You can play all year at LSU.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he's gonna be having a good time there in the links soon. And he did, and people got to remember his first year, he gets Tuitt and Lynch. All right, he has a great class. You know, the next, he had some good classes those first few years at Notre Dame. Why? Because he had to prove his worth. He had to get out there. He had to make sure that he was doing what he needed to do. But then, he goes to the national championship, and never mind, he gets blown out by Bama in one of the most embarrassing losses Notre Dame's ever had. Never mind that the Eagles come calling, and he goes and takes the interview with them. It's okay. Hey, Notre Dame, the Eagles, the NFL wants me. I just got blown out in the national championship game. At least I was there. Hey, how about you give me a fat new contract and some other stuff I want in here? Okay, good. Notre Dame's going to give it to you. Good. I'll stick at Notre Dame. but I'm going to put in my contract, I want to play 52 more rounds of golf this year.
There should be a handicap requirement. Like, we only allow that if your handicap's going down, you get to play more. Like, you're getting better, so we'll loosen it up on you. I don't know, man.
Right.
Listen.
But this one, like, people don't remember. Like, people don't remember this about Kelly, and it blows my mind. It's just he didn't recruit. He just didn't do it. His assistant coaches did it. He wouldn't even go to guys' houses, really good players' houses. Freeman's everywhere. The guy's everywhere. He's like Sean Kemp. He's spraying his seed all across the country. It's unbelievable where all the places.
I didn't expect a Sean Kemp reference. That's old school, man. That's old school. We're getting old. Sean Kemp.
I couldn't remember the guy in the Jets. Who's the cornerback on the Jets? Was it Antonio Cromartie? He couldn't name all of his. Somebody asked him to name all his kids, and he couldn't do it.
Oh yeah, too many to keep track. Cromartie or whatever. Yeah, he couldn't keep track.
Yeah, I thought it was something like. I thought it was.
All right, let's bring this all. Yeah. Let's bring this all home, Pat. Here's what I'm gathered, and this is after the OC thing, after everything that happened last year on the field, the recruiting class that was really exciting, and then got dinged with the NIL. Now that all this, my realization is quite simple, and it's none of these questions are going to go away unless and until Freeman gets results on the field that make them go away. That's the only way. There's no other way.
So
every time anything happens now, it's going to be this until or if
I hear you.
That point comes.
I hear you. I hear you completely. I don't disagree with you at all. But this is what will happen is if Freeman does find the success that we want him to find, which is there's one metric, and this would bury Brian Kelly forever. In as far as the Brian Kelly debate and the Marcus Freeman debate, if he wins a national championship, not if he goes to a playoff. He's got to win a national championship because Kelly's went to a playoff. All right. If he wins a national championship,
couldn't you argue if he just wins a playoff game, he's more accomplished? Or are we not going to count that because it wouldn't be a 4-teamer? So maybe we would get our win in a year we wouldn't have been in.
I don't want another coach. I don't want another coach that's going to take me to a playoff game every 3 years and then lose. I don't want that.
Well, wait a second. I got news for people. When this expands to 12, I expect Notre Dame to be in it every single year. You could lose your biggest game or two and still be in it. Yeah. That is perfectly reasonable. That is totally reasonable to me.
I agree. But what are people going to say? They're not going to say that, oh, look, Freeman gets in the playoff right here. They're going to say, well, if the playoff wasn't at 12, Notre Dame wouldn't have been there every year. So you can't really say Brian Kelly would have done it too. And it might actually be a fair point. Brian Kelly probably could get to the playoff every year at 12 at Notre Dame. He probably could have. He probably put those teams together to do that. But so you can't use that as you got to win it. You got to win it. You want to silence the Brian Kelly people. You got to win it. That's it. That's it. That's the end of story. You got to win it. But then what happens is you're going to get all these Marcus Freeman haters, all these trolls in here who I'm not even going to say their names because, they're just all walking around hand jobs. There all these trolls that are out there against Marcus Freeman. They are going to then say he's going to OSU or he's going to the NFL or Notre Dame's going to blow this. They're not going to keep him. They're not going to go away. They're not going to stop. Because it's not their motivation in life. Their motivation isn't to see Notre Dame get better. The motivation is to tear something down. So all these questions that you see, and look at Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz won it in 88, could have won it in 89, 90, 91, 93, could have had national champions. Lou Holtz could easily have 3 national championships at Notre Dame. And they still tore that man down. They still looked at everything possible to tear that man down. We haven't had a coach at Notre Dame that people haven't tried to tear apart since Parsegian, okay? And we've only had one coach at Notre Dame since Parsegian that was worth not tearing down, and that was Lou Holtz. And I was one of the guys that was tearing down Bob Davie. I was tearing down Tyrone Willingham. I was tearing down Charlie Weiss. I was tearing down Brian Kelly. So I was on that side of it too. But I also supported all of those guys. I got behind, as much as I despise Tyrone Willingham, I got behind him as a head coach because I wanted Notre Dame to succeed. And if he was the guy to do it, I was all for it. And then once I saw he wasn't the guy to do it, I was no longer with it. And so all the people that are dogging Marcus Freeman, they don't want Notre Dame to succeed.
Yeah, and the other thing is too is the way this goes is all the dumping on now, questioning Marcus, all this heat I get for supporting him. Every time something bad happens by proxy, it's like, John, look at your guy. That's what it turns into. John, your guy's messing something up. Even if Notre Dame succeeds, you're not going to get a retraction from those guys. That's when they just stay silent, right? Or come up with a reason that we got there by luck. So I don't understand some of these people, Pat. I used to be the guy, glass half empty guy, blah, 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 when I was riding Kelly. But I think people all knew it was out of genuine love for Notre Dame and wanting them to succeed. I think some of these people just want to be mad or want all of us mad or want me to be mad. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you're going to be, and they're wasting their time because you're going to get mad anyways.
It's just a matter of what it's about. Like, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of what lights the fuse. So I don't know, Pat. All right, let's wrap this call up here, and I'll ask you this. What are your top couple priorities for Notre Dame this spring? Just give me a couple of them that you would want to see them work on or kind of coordinate to end in a better spot after spring going to summer. What's most important?
Hartman knows the playbook. We're in sync between the offensive coordinator, the quarterback coach, the offensive line, and the quarterback. That's important.
Man, you had my number one bullet point is all the new pieces of the offense coming together. So you just hit my number one. They all got to blend in together.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to look flashy. It just has to look organized. I don't care if it looks flashy. I just don't want guys, deep balls that are thrown where nobody's in the area. I don't want to see that stuff. I want to see, and that it doesn't have to be flashy. It just has to be organized. The defense, I want to see speed. I want to see consistency in tackling. I don't want to see missed tackles. Just speed, tackling and speed. That's where we're at right now. And the linebackers, to actually notice the linebackers, to notice them, because the only time I noticed the linebackers last year was when they were not there, and they should have been.
Yeah.
So that's probably my biggest thing.
Yeah,
that's my biggest thing. And like this whole like the depth and stuff, to go back to it. I said this in one of our debate shows. I don't know what he has. I follow the recruiting. I track it. But then a season happens, and there's a ton of guys that redshirt that don't play. And so I don't know who's going to walk onto the field at the spring game. I don't know who's going to walk onto the field against Navy and be a player and participate, and who's grown up, who's taken advantage of every opportunity they've had, who's getting an opportunity that they didn't have before because of an Isaiah Foskey or somebody else on the field. So I don't know what's there. And so I'm not going to say this defense is going to be terrible. I'm just saying right now it's suspect. It's very suspect. And until we see these guys playing, it's going to stay suspect for me.
Yeah, and that's fair. And those are a couple things on my list too. So I don't know. It's just everything's under the magnifying glass here. And it doesn't matter what it is. One little thing, and it just sparks a reaction. And it's a bit much, even for me, because I'm usually that guy, but I did not expect the negativity towards Freeman over a Hillman that I woke up to. It surprised me a little bit. I was a little surprised by those messages and how many there were. Doesn't he know what's allowed here? Is he ignoring the rule? Like, is Freeman just going rogue and ignoring the administration? Who does he think he is? He messed this up.
John, those are the same people complaining about the rules.
But everybody knew the dynamic here, and it didn't work out. Yeah. But everybody was aware of what their part in this was.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's overblown. I think everything has been overblown. It's the offseason. It's Notre Dame. It's always overblown. And I'm sure there's an Alabama calling show right now where people are freaking out about the same kind of stuff. It's well, except they're not.
I don't know about that Northerner Thomas Race. I don't know what plays he's going to draw up, Paul. Paul, who we gonna throw it to? I don't trust this Notre Dame Catholic guy. Anyways, all right, Pat. On that Southern accent, I'm hanging up. Why don't you go actually work? Why don't you go do that?
My phone's blowing up. Somebody's trying to get a hold of me.
All right. I love you, Pat. Thanks for calling first thing on the new hour ahead, and here you are. Have a good week, Pat.
Yeah.
Later.
Bye.
Oh my gosh, that's just a lot. What do we have here? Couple super chats, and then we got another call. 224. I'm coming right to you. Christopher Morgan, $20 holler. Can't thank you enough for that. Whoa, just bought 4 tickets to Notre Dame, Ohio State for over $460 per ticket. Great seats, though. Section 7, row 21. Anyways, I thought, why stop spending now? Add this to the phone line ballots. It's 10:50 and I need a beer already. I really appreciate that. $20 holler, it all adds up. And I guess you're right. If you just paid almost 500 times 4, you could throw John a 20. I know you can afford it. Oh, $4.99. Thank you so much. $5 holler, pop up on the phone lines. I got you. Cousin Luke, regarding Goolsby and his position on all this, I'm actually planning on inviting him on so that he can explain through that and we could kind of work through that together and kind of bounce some of this back and forth. So I've had a lot of people ask me what I think about Goolsby's position on all this, and I do plan on having a discussion with him. As a player, I'm interested to see his perspective and hear it all and kind of break down the positives and negatives. But I have been getting asked about his thoughts a lot. 224, give me some more. Thank you for the $5.
Hey, how's it going, John?
Very well. Where do you want to go today? You're always well thought out. Do you want to hit on any of the Hillman stuff or the big picture of where that falls? We could go wherever you want to go, man.
Well, I think, we could start with Hillman. I do think it's a big blow because when they lost out on Peyton Bowen, he was supposed to be the consolation prize. You know, he was not a safety necessarily in high school, but the whole thought was you get a guy like Al Golden and, you know, Mike Minkins and O'Leary, they could probably develop that guy. And so in 2 years, he might be like a superstar type safety. So who knows what happens. So I guess what Pat was saying, you can't really like knock the guy until we find out what happened. I have to think it's more than just grades though. It's either he wanted to back out or there's something more going on, because you'd think that they could try to work something out over the summer to try to get him in later on. But who knows?
And that's why it's uncomfortable for me, because I don't want to go hard 100% when I'm not 100% sure of the issue, in a way where I would have more diligence to be careful about this than like throwing it out there that the administration didn't do things right with like Ludwig. Like that's a different dynamic than saying this kid's not smart enough to get a good grade. So that's why I'm hesitant to do that. But that's the story that's out there. So I don't know, but I just can't believe everybody's like dragging Freeman and running him over with the bus. It's frustrating for me.
I'm not doing that, but I do. Okay. So here's my thought. I think there's really two things going on, and then I want to talk about the spring, but I think there's kind of two things going on here. Marcus Freeman is a hell of a recruiter, and I like that he keeps all the coaches accountable. If you're gonna be on Freeman's staff, you've got to recruit. So in some ways, that's probably a good thing that Harry Heastand left, because for how good of a developer he is, the MO on him was like, if he was on the road, he would only want to go to one school. And that's like not Marcus Freeman's style. He wants you hitting 3 or 4 schools and just really recruiting. So you got to love that. But the problem is Marcus Freeman's timing. Like, I wish Freeman was the coach, in 2004 when NIL wasn't a thing, because NIL is going to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I've come to the realization that if you are a top 10 recruit, consensus recruit at your position, not top 10 nationally, those guys are going to absolutely demand money up front. But if you're top 10 at your position, I think most of those guys, unless they're just bought in, they're going to go to Notre Dame regardless of the situation, they're going to want upfront money. And until Notre Dame sort of figures out what they want to do with NIL, then Marcus Freeman's going to have an uphill battle. So I think, under the circumstances, I think he's done pretty well at recruiting.
Yep.
But
see, that's so tough. That's so tough.
Top 5 guys.
Because when I look at that too, and I look at, the top 3 guys in this class that we thought we might get and ended up not getting, I have real doubts of how engaged Kelly would be in having them that close to being at Notre Dame. And it's like, when I say the guys doing this work, you just might not see it because of these extra hurdles. You know how it is. People don't want to hear it, man. It's like, well, it is the way it is now, so you got to do it now, and I was told, believe it or don't believe it, but I was reassured there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to build up Notre Dame's NIL support staff and like building that out more behind the scenes. I'm not saying it's going to be blank checks like these other that's not it, but I've been assured that they're building more of an infrastructure for support for that kind of thing behind the scenes that we are not privy to. I don't know how that's going to manifest, but I guess it's good news to hear that there's progress on it. And they realize behind closed doors, they need to get more robust with that. What that looks like, I don't know, but I've been told they're working on it.
And prior to Hartman coming to Notre Dame, I would have called BS on that. Like, they always say they're working on stuff, but it's clear that with Hartman's recruitment, they were back channeling him. And so that's technically against the rules, because there's just no way that Hartman can announce that he's going to Notre Dame a day or two after, he finishes his bowl game. It's like he liked Notre Dame in 24 hours. Like, it's almost a pot. So I think Notre Dame has shown a willingness to kind of change. They're probably just not. The one thing that I think that they will not do is what like Texas A&M and these SEC schools do, is that they're guaranteeing millions of dollars up front to people. I just can't see that Notre Dame will probably
and I wouldn't
say,
I wouldn't want it, because when you're doing that, then you're no longer Notre Dame. You're no longer operating at that standard that we want and with those values. Like, then you're starting to lose some of the Notre Dame-iness that drives me crazy, but that I respect at the same time. Does that make sense?
Well, but on the flip side, then don't expect to get the next Jalen Waddle or, Devontae Freeman.
Well, here's my thought.
Those guys were coming out now. Those guys would have said, give me $1 million up front, and because they're running 340.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this as like an ending position. What if we just ended up somewhere in between where we're at right now? Meaning able to do a lot more in NIL, either with opportunities or dollar amounts, being able to do more, but not have it be a blank check, blah, blah, blah. But that keeps you more competitive for those top level guys. Like, is that a middle ground position that you think most Notre Dame fans or you would be okay with? Doing more, but not the blank check? Or do you think that's not good enough, we're still not going to get them?
Well, I would. Hey, Notre Dame's supposed to be the brainiacs. I would take it a step forward. Hire a Theo Epstein general manager type guy who makes recommendations to the staff and then probably prioritize the positions that matter. So, like, we won't pay upfront money except for quarterback. We will pay upfront money, because if you land, like, look at Clemson. They landed a Trevor Lawrence. That changed the fortunes of Dabo Swinney. I get that he had won a national title prior, but getting Trevor Lawrence put Clemson in the Alabama conversation for like 3 or 4 years. So I would guarantee if there's a Trevor Lawrence out there that is a can't miss 5-star and he fits the Notre Dame profile, like he gets good grades and he would be like just perfect for marketing and stuff, then you better guarantee money up front for a guy like that, or else we're just going to be a fledgling situation because like the one thing that I think too many people knock Brian Kelly for is that, he didn't land top 10 classes. Then you have to explain how the guy was able to win so many regular season games. And I think he was clearly pretty good at developing, 3-star and low 4-star players into being pretty darn good. So I think we gotta play that balancing act. If we're not gonna go after the 5-star guys because we want upfront money, then the coaching hires need to be better than what we did this offseason, because we hired a bunch of guys who had no experience. You flip that, you go to the Michigan staff, who is not recruiting as well as Notre Dame. They've got a lot of super experienced guys. They pick up guys from the Baltimore Ravens all the time onto their staff. So it's like it's a development and a recruitment situation. So if we're not going to be a top 5 class, then I want to see better hires that will be guys who can truly take a 3-star and then develop them into a potential NFL round pick, or late round pick or something, because that means you're taking guys who had no business being in the NFL and developing them.
Yeah.
It
does. And the ideal scenario would be you got both of those functioning at the same time, where you do have those mid 3-star, low 4-star guys that are developing into productive college guys and NFL guys. And you have 2 or 3 or 4 of them 5-star guys you could bring in, and they're starting right away. Like, that's where you're hitting the home run, because you got it cooking on all ends then. So it's my issue personally is everybody knows my feelings to Marcus Freeman. So whenever I say anything, then it becomes you're just a Freeman homer and you're going to do anything to defend him, and you're not open to any negativity against Freeman because that's your guy. That's what I go up against. So when I say, I'll give you an example. The best example of that is when I will say, from everything I see, read, and hear behind the scenes, Freeman is working 100 times harder than Kelly ever did in terms of recruiting talent to Notre Dame. Like, I will say that, and then people are like, well, where are the results? Number 15. You're like, I'm not seeing that results practically. So it doesn't matter. I just feel like the finish line moved a lot further on Freeman than it was at Kelly at Notre Dame in terms of landing an elite class. What I'd love to see Kelly. No, we would never get anybody good if Kelly was here in the NIL. It'd be impossible. The way he operated and having to deal with money, no way. But when I say that, it just got harder to get to the finish line because NIL. John, you're making excuses for Freeman. You're in the bag for Freeman, so you're just going to cover for him no matter what. I'm in a position where I can't really win.
Well, I just think people probably need to dig a little deeper, because, okay, fine, if they did drop to the 15th ranked class just because Hillman isn't coming, then you got to look at the blue chip ratio, what Bud Elliott puts out, Notre Dame's blue chip ratio, meaning they're getting top end 4-star talent as compared to what they used to get. That's
what was it? 83%? It was 83% in 23. I'm sure it went down now that Hillman's not a part of it, but the blue chip rate was 83%. Just as a reference, mid Kelly tenure, he had the blue chip rate under 50. That is a major difference of 49% blue chip and 83, 84. Big difference.
Or even Clemson, when they won the national title one of those years, their blue chip ratio was like in the 60s or something. Yep. So they're already out recruiting, a national champion from the last few years. The other thing I would mention too is two more things in terms of Marcus Freeman's recruiting. Look where they're winning position battles. Like, that hire of Stuckey was an awesome hire.
Yep.
Because not only did he replenish the wide receiver room, he won 2 or 3 recruiting battles in the state of Texas, which is the most talent-rich state in the country. I don't care what anybody says.
Yep.
That's a huge win. Does Notre Dame win that many recruiting battles in Texas prior to that guy Stuckey getting there? It's like, I know they would occasionally, maybe a linebacker and stuff like that, but not skill player wide receivers. Like, that's really impressive. Plus the guy out in California, in Sacramento. Like, you have to think USC was trying to go in and get that wide receiver as well. And it's just like, we are winning in places where there's talent-rich areas. So I think that's good. And then the last thing I mentioned is, you don't get credit recruiting class-wise for this, but I am shocked at how unexcited certain people are about Sam Hartman being on Notre Dame. This guy is going to be the best quarterback Notre Dame's had is probably Brady Quinn. I'm trying to think of like who would be on Sam Hartman's level.
Yeah.
That's a recruiting win by Freeman. Like, even when Brian Kelly knew he had to go outside of the quarterback room to get a quarterback, and he got Jack Cohn, and I'm not trying to knock Jack Cohn. He actually played quite well with us, which was a feather in Reese's cap, because I did not think Jack Cohn could throw for as many yards as he did. But like, they aimed low there. I mean, Jack Cohn was not like this highly sought after transfer portal guy. But Freeman didn't try to gobble up Armstrong or even the NC State quarterback. They had a guy picked out. Hartman is, in my opinion, the best, most accomplished quarterback in that transfer portal.
Yeah.
Better than Hudson Card. I don't care what anybody says about Hudson Card, just because he has a good arm. He lost 2 straight quarterback competitions. So we got the guy who threw for just numerous touchdowns. And I think that if anybody has any doubt about what we're getting, go watch the highlights of Wake Forest against Clemson last year. And I know Clemson was a little down, but their defense was good. Only 2 other quarterbacks picked them apart. The South Carolina quarterback did throw it well against them. And then the Tennessee, because their offense was ridiculous. Everybody else on their schedule got totally shut down by Clemson's defense. You go watch the Wake Forest game. Not only was he throwing for touchdowns and a lot of yards, they were pass interfering like crazy, because they were just getting totally turned around, and Hartman was fearless, just throwing the ball downfield. Like, when's the last time we had a quarterback that was fearless and threw the ball downfield and gave wide receivers the opportunity to win? I know Brooks would do that sometimes.
No, I'm going further back. I'm going back
to
either Kaiser or Clausen, right?
Definitely.
Really?
Like, I would say probably Jimmy Clausen.
Yeah, when I look at that, here's what all right, follow me here. In a perfect ideal scenario with natural, uninterrupted by outside influences, being injury, grades, whatever, in a perfect world, you would want to roll with Buckner, your homegrown guy, finally healthy. You roll in the year, give him that chance, keep that continuity. You would want to do that. I understand fully Notre Dame fans' desire to see that happen, because we have been invested in Buckner for a lot of years now, even when he was a California high school recruit. I totally get why people have an affinity to want to see that play out and big picture, a whole season, see what it's going to be. However, they tried to do that last year, got totally burned when the absolute worst case scenario happened and Buckner got hurt, and then you were in a bad spot the whole rest of the year. The reason we're where we're at now is because Notre Dame can't put themselves in that risk leverage position again. That is why Hartman's here. I don't look at it as a slight on Buckner. It's just the facts are the facts that Notre Dame can't expose themselves to that disaster again. And they had to get somebody to prevent that. It's not ideal, but the timing and luck and everything with Buckner's not been ideal. That's how we ended up here. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're totally right. And I think Notre Dame fans might need to come to a realization that during the entire Brian Kelly era, he was looking for a specific type of quarterback. It was a dual threat quarterback, a guy who could run and throw a little bit. And what I would just say to you is, if you think back on that era, could any of those dual threat quarterbacks that were, going to be the next guy up, could they consistently make throws? And the answer was no. Even Everett Golson was probably the best out of the bunch of the dual threat quarterbacks, struggled at times to read defenses and make throws. Notre Dame needs to come to the realization that traditional quarterbacks might be more available to them and be better solutions for them, because they had way more success when Ian Book was the quarterback. I put Deshaun Kaiser as more of a traditional quarterback. He ran a little bit, but it was more power running and running over people. He was not a traditional like dual threat. Then Jack Cohn was a statue, but if they had any sort of offensive line, he could have put up even bigger stats. So it's like, you know what? Stop with the dual threat stuff. We can recruit pro-style quarterbacks. They've got Hartman, and I think Minchie might actually be the future, because he won the Elite 11 most accurate passer. And wouldn't it be nice to have a quarterback come into the game and actually be able to hit a 5-yard out and not throw it at someone's feet?
Imagine that. Whoa. Where do you get off asking for these fancy luxuries, my friend? Back it up. like, I don't know, man. I am genuinely surprised the amount of people that want Buckner to start over Hartman. There's more of that percentage than I thought there would be in this fan base. There is.
Yeah.
And
I
but
totally agree,
but why?
I
But
think
wait,
that Buckner,
let me ask why
let's
though.
just be honest about Buckner.
But why do you
Go ahead,
think
sorry.
that is? I think a part of that is because we just have so much fan emotion invested in what Buckner's potential could be going back, 3 or 4 or 5 years now. And I just think people want to see it play out. I think that's a part of it.
That, and also people like quarterbacks that can run. I mean, look at the NFL right now. It's pretty exciting to watch Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes can run a little bit, and they think that's the future, which is true. But if we're not getting those types of guys, we're getting like pretenders. Because honestly, I'm going to be kind of harsh with Buckner. I see that there's talent, but you know who else had a ton of talent, but it just never came together for him? Was Nebraska's quarterback Martinez. That guy was maybe arguably a better runner than Buckner, but he just never could read defenses, and he's the reason why Scott Frost is out of a job right now. So I would just say to people who are all about Buckner, it's like if Freeman really didn't do the right thing and get Hartman, he'd be putting his job on the line. Can you imagine going with Buckner, a guy who had one good drive against Ohio State and then essentially didn't do anything the rest of the game?
Somebody put in the chat, Buckner's potential is to potentially be hurt by game 3. Like,
that's the truth. That's the truth.
It's
like,
just
honestly,
so sad.
In the bowl game, for how good,
it's just so sad that I
Buckner
have to look at it that way.
For how good Buckner played in the bowl game, he did not change his style of play one bit. And so just like he is not a runner that will make you miss. He's a runner that in the open field, he's got good like open field speed. And so he could gash you for a long run. But the problem with him is like he doesn't slide, nor does he make people miss. So how could you expect that he's not going to get injured? I mean, how many big hits did we see Buckner take against South Carolina in that game? So I just think that they made the right move. I think Freeman is a winner in that at least he's trying to get the best guys at the position. He's not trying to just like only play guys that he recruited. I think he's willing to compartmentalize that it's all about winning. So I'm really excited. I think my spring storylines are Hartman is much more of a personality than I was expecting. I thought he was just going to be some quiet guy, from an academic school. So I think if the offense is not going well, he'll give little hints. And I think that Parker and that Gino Gaduli guy are the storyline because they need to make sure that the offense is running right. And then the second thing is there needs to be good buzz going into the new year, because if there isn't, what's going on with CJ Carr? Like On3 had an interview with him over the weekend, and it was just a bizarre interview. At no point did he reaffirm his commitment to Notre Dame. So I think it's really their responsibility to have a good spring so that CJ Carr gets back into the fold, or else you're right back to where we were last year, where we don't have a quarterback in the class. Like that would be ridiculous. So that's where, and then I will leave you on that. That has always been my biggest complaint about the offensive coordinator search. We talked about how NIL is so pivotal to recruiting, but Dante Moore's recruitment at UCLA proved to you that if NIL can be overcome, if your coach convinces top recruits that they're going to push you into the NFL. And if you read what Dante Moore said about his commitment to UCLA, he's not getting a ton of NIL money up front. I promise you, UCLA does not do that. But Chip Kelly sold him on the idea that, hey, I used to be in the NFL. I coached 2 NFL teams. I put Marcus Tuia, or what was his name? The Samoan dude at Oregon. I put that guy in the NFL. I put numerous other players in the NFL. I know how to make that happen for you. And he flipped Dante Moore from after Dante Moore's offensive coordinator at Oregon went to Arizona State. He flipped him. And I think that although Ludwig was not like this dynamic recruiter, he had a similar resume. He coached several NFL players and quarterbacks. And then Cam Rising, who knew who Cam Rising was? He comes and plays for Utah. He's on a short list for the Heisman Trophy this year. So that was such a huge disappointment, because even though Jared Parker and Gino Gaduli might be, the greatest talkers in the world, they don't have any gravitas when it comes to saying, hey, I guess maybe Gino Guidugli could say, hey, that, Cincinnati quarterback, I developed him, but not a Power 5 quarterback. So I don't know how, I just don't know how that really sells. So I just think it was a missed opportunity. Bring in a dude who has gravitas that says, hey, I'm going to develop you into an NFL quarterback, and you might be able to land a top 5 quarterback. So.
I don't know, man. There's a lot there. A Notre Dame fan's existence is an examine of all existential circumstances at all times. It's wild. Everything seems to be interwoven and overlapped into the next thing. Nothing has simple answers. We just need to have a stabilizing spring that energizes everybody. And then, you know what? If people see that offense and Artman throwing it around and it's more exciting, then maybe that'll help till we get into the summer. But some of this is a bit tedious, man. People are waiting for the next thing to nail everybody for, it seems like. And maybe people say I'm a part of that problem, but I'm not going at it the way these people are. I think some of these people want us to do bad. I don't get it.
Well, I will just end on this, and I hope that maybe one show you do over the spring is examining Notre Dame's schedule. I would just say that, just leave you on this, that we play 3 really, really hard games. Clemson, USC, Ohio State.
NC State might be the key to that whole thing there, is getting by that one to build you up for Ohio State at home undefeated and go from there. I got that NC State one circled. And you know what my thought is on it? Every year, Notre Dame has a couple games that when I do my preview, I'll say, I am telling you this week, I don't give a crap about style points and fanciness, and you got to win by 50. Certain games, you just need to get a W no matter what. Keep it moving. That's exactly what NC State is. Just fight, claw, win your way through that game.
Yeah, I would say the defense. I mean, because if that Armstrong guy who used to be Virginia's quarterback have a huge game against Notre Dame, then you realize, oh God, because Ohio State's gonna is way more loaded than NC State. But I would just leave you on this, that I don't like the idea that Notre Dame, when you already have Navy on the schedule, you schedule Tennessee State and Central Michigan at home. I just think that part of recruiting is having a rabid atmosphere, to bring recruits in and be proud. And I'm just I can't imagine.
But dude, wait a second, man. We already have one of the toughest schedules in the country. You got 3 different top 10 teams that we're playing. That right there is tougher than what most teams have all year. How much tougher do you want?
Yeah, but you
5 top 10 teams? I just think there's a balance. You already got 3 top 10 teams right there. That's a lot. Is it not?
I just think that it's you're playing 3 non-Power 5 opponents on your schedule, and one of them's an HBCU, which is a low-end Division I AA team. I just think then we have to accept that there's going to be 2 games this year where it's going to be a half-empty stadium, and I don't like the look of that, and I also don't like the ACC arrangement. I think that it's played its course, and we need to get out of it because that conference is a dead conference.
Yeah,
but
that's interesting.
I'll leave that for another day.
Yeah, that is a whole nother thing we could get into. But hey, man, thanks for the call. I'm going to say this to you too. Crystal clear phone lines by you. And that matters to me. Really good. I appreciate that as well. But thanks a lot, man. Give me a call. It's never boring here in Notre Dame land. Never boring. Thanks for the call.
Awesome.
Thank you. The donation, man. Have a good one. What a nice guy. Very well thought out. Everybody doesn't have to agree with him or me. That's fine. That's the point of this. Christopher Morgan, $20 holler. Let's see. Well, I have a separate account that's just for 2 ND football games per year that I add money to every month. Last year, I spent the entire weekend in Columbus and went to the amazing Clemson game. That's beautiful. Have another $20. I'll take it. I appreciate that. This dude's got priorities. Separate accounts, the Notre Dame expense account. I love that. What else did we have here? Another one from Christopher Morgan. This dude must have a big time job raking in the dough. Look at this. By the way, I'll be at the BG game on 4/22. Would love to meet the man, the myth, the legend. First 5 beers on me. That's a deal. Weather pending, I will be there. And I want to meet up with everybody I can. Blue and gold is the perfect time to do that because it's way less chaotic than when we get into this season and there's 100,000 people walking around, all that. So that I think is what we'll do. So, all right, folks, we're just going to end the show right here. I have a whole different line I wanted to go down with more of spring things and what is most important in the spring and what I need to see with different position groups. I wanted to get into that. We've almost gone 2 hours pretty much on this recruiting issue. I'm going to save that for later in the week because I don't want to rush through it. So we're just going to cut it off and we'll save that for later. Thanks to everybody who was here, everybody for watching, everybody for donating, putting in the chats, even if you're mean and you hate everybody and everybody's bad and I'm an idiot and Freeman's an idiot and the administration's an idiot. Everybody's an idiot. I still appreciate you being here. So hope nobody's too tired that they had to spring forward and lose an hour of sleep. Have a good one. We'll be back in a day or two. I'll have something for you.